Hey everyone, welcome to another session of Conversations with Courageous Cancer Warriors. And today we have a topic which most of us can relate to. Um, Joining us today is Kelli Calabrese. She is a divorce coach, an author, a speaker, and a complete powerhouse when it comes to the topic of divorce. And what do you do after that happens, right? So, Kelli, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Lori, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me. It's an honor.
So I love this topic that you bring up, this conversation around how to overcome grief, rejection, and even fear once you are in the divorce proceedings, right? Like that second that conversation starts, there really is a shift within all of us. And sometimes it's not a very good one. So tell me, how did you get to become a divorce coach?
Oh my goodness. Well, as most of us know, from the pain, comes the passion. I was married for 25 years and thought things were going, pretty well for the most part. Thought I was kind of living the dream. And my husband of 25 years came home and said, my commitment to our marriage is zero. And he left. And that was the thing. I mean, it floored me. It took me to my knees, emptied me out, made me question everything in my life. And even though for 35 years I had been a fitness, nutrition, wellness, lifestyle coach with a pretty awesome career. I mean, I've been on all the major networks, written best-selling books, spoken on stages around the world. Like I thought I had it going on. This really, really was my thing. And so my identity just got rocked, as a lot of people do when something really blindsides them, like a cancer diagnosis or an accident or a job loss, something they're just not expecting. And so I went on a 3-year, what I lovingly call a healing sabbatical, to figure this out, because it was a mind, body, spirit encounter and journey to becoming well and readjusting and getting to a place of not only healthy, but then helping other women.
Yeah. Yeah. And those of us that are listening, we have all gone through some sort of trauma, whether or not we've been diagnosed with cancer, we're supporting other people with cancer. And this is right alongside of that, right? Like, oh, how do I want to word this? So ultimately, what happens when people get diagnosed, it goes two ways. We either recognize once we face our mortality, like, look, the life that I have right now is not the one that I want to live. Or the significant other is like, I'm not dealing with this, I'm out, right? Because of so much impact that a diagnosis does have. So, what would be something that you would share with the audience on, okay, so now you're faced with a separation? What do you do?
Yeah, it's a great question. One of the things that I have found that I wish I knew earlier was those who accept the diagnosis, the situation, tend to fare the best. When you're just clawing in, resisting, going, this isn't happening to me. You're just in total denial, like, this isn't my world. This isn't what I signed up for. I was the good person. I ate healthy, or I never looked at another man, or, whatever your thing is. If you're clawing on and not accepting, it's going to be a long, slow, painful, suffering route that you're actually going to make things worse. So the people who can accept it, and this is part of like the 12-step programs that people do for addiction, like, okay, I've got a situation here. I need to really accept this. So acceptance is definitely huge. One of the first things that I train on is identity, because we identify as someone who is healthy or married or, whatever it is. And then all of a sudden it doesn't look like that. And it could go away in a moment. We can go from being healthy to having a diagnosis, being married
Yeah.
to being single, even being a parent. Our kids eventually leave. I mean, anything in the world can just be gone in a moment and change. So we have to line our identity up with something even bigger than that. And for me, it was my faith. And so I definitely work on people with their identity, because if you're wrapped around something that could be taken away in a moment, it can really wreck you. Another big one that I work on with my coaching clients is forgiveness. We're so quick to want to have someone to blame or something to blame. And that's another way that you will not heal. You will become bitter, you will become angry, you'll become stuck and stopped in that ugly, dark place if you don't forgive. So, I mean, you could stop me at any time because we could go do a deep dive on any of these.
Yeah. So forgiveness too for yourself and for the other person, right? So
Absolutely.
so there was a statistic that that really called to me is that, cancer will show up 7 to 10 years after a life trauma. So for me, literally almost to the day, 7 years after I was divorced, I ended up with breast cancer, which is a very common thing for people to have, right? I mean, it sounds really weird, but for those of us, we all have had some life trauma that have led us down this path where we then have disease. So I would love to hear from you if that's what you also see, and what is something that people can do to try to like not have that as a consequence.
Right. One of the things that I'm seeing with the women that I'm working with is it's not 7 years, it's barely even 7 months sometimes. When your body is that stressed out, it's going to react, respond some way. And some of it could be things we're doing, because when we're hurting, we're going to turn to something. So whether it's alcohol, sugar, overfeeding, inactivity, toxic thinking, getting around toxic people, staying stuck in a victim modality, which victim is actually decaying like death. If you look at the energy of victim, your body's decaying. That's what it means. That's the energy level. It's just disintegrating. So there are some things that we can do, obviously, to keep our energy up, keep our vibration up. Don't get into a bottle of wine every night, sitting, overfeeding sugar. So you have to look at what can we do to help our situation. I thankfully have always been healthy. So even though I was going through this valley of darkness, I still got up every morning and I did meditation. And even if I just got on my gym clothes and laid in the gym and cried, that was all I could do that day, I still did something to keep in a good routine. So we still have to take responsibility and not shift the blame to go, okay, what's our part in this? What can we do to be healthy? But I am finding women are having breast cancer specifically and on the right side, because the right represents the masculine side. So it's like an attack from a man when the divorce, happens. There was a betrayal, or you just were never made to feel secure, or there was abuse, or whatever may have happened. I see that. And I have not actually looked up the research on that in terms of what percentage of women get divorced and get right breast cancer. But I just know personally, I'm seeing it with my clients. So again, not separating the body, mind, and spirit, it's going to show up somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I joke around about it all the time. Now that I'm 5 years out from diagnosis, I feel like I can be a little bit more cheeky with things, right? And I had 4 lesions on my left side, and I literally had named them for every life event that was traumatizing to me. I gave them all a name, and the biggest one was my ex-husband, right? So, I love this conversation because what you do is so important for people. Now, tell me a little bit about the programs that you have available.
Yeah, so after the 3 years, one of my first goals was to get my kids off to college, set up successfully. And I remember the day I came home and I had a freshman and a sophomore in college. And I was like, okay, like I checked the boxes, because you feel like you've ruined your kids' lives, So I was like, I know I did the best I could. They've got their schools and their cars and their computers and their phones, and like, okay, check. And I was like, what do I do now? And I really felt led to help other women get on the other side of this in a healthy way. So I looked over the 3 years and what were really things that moved the needle for me, because I know most women can't take 3 years off and go on sabbaticals and retreats and hire coaches and counselors and do all the therapy. And so I put all of that in a program, and it's called Intentionally Fabulous Single Redefined. And so the 8 things are identity, forgiveness, renewing your mind, purpose, self-love and gratitude, divine health, abundant wealth, and then what I call joy, resurrection, and celebration, because it's not all hard. It's not all sadness and suffering. There's got to be something great to look forward to. And so in this program, women walk through the grief. So I take them from wherever they are, if it's still in that like denial, shock, numbness, or anger, fear, bitterness, or panic, lonely, depressed, anywhere they are, I help get them unstuck. And it's never a perfect line. It's not just like this linear, like, okay, better, better, better. It's messy because you get triggered and, then it's Mother's Day or, your anniversary and whatever it might be in life, you can have setbacks, but we keep moving you along in a healthy way so that you do get to a place where I have a new pattern. I have new way thinking. I have new strengths and new hope and new life, and I can do things in a healthy way. So that's what I help them do.
I love that. I love that. And you're so spot on when you say it's not linear. Healing is not linear. You're going to have some really great days, and then you're going to have some days where you're just lucky you make your bed, you take a shower. So what I also hear in that is giving yourself grace.
Yes, absolutely. One of the things I do with my clients a lot is I start what I call, have them start a to don't list, because the last thing I want to do is come in as a coach and go, okay, you got to start breathing and meditating and journaling and, drink more water. But I have them consider, like, what are the things that you can stop? And it just gives them space to have that grace about, okay, I can stop creating chaos or trying to control things, telling everyone what to do. I can stop drinking a bottle of wine a night. I can stop overcommitting, overspending, replaying the past injustices. I can stop that, whatever it is. And it just creates space, which does then give you the grace. And then you have this to don't list, like, okay, I'm not going to overspend, overcommit, overschedule, do too much. And then when you have space, you can go, okay, now maybe I can take a walk after dinner at night and get out in nature and breathe.
Yeah.
So it does say, I'm going to give myself some grace, and it's spiritual, but also practical and physical. Like, physically give yourself space and watch what happens.
And it's so important because most of the time, like, we all have our defaults when it comes to avoiding something, right? So some people dive into their work, some people dive into their children, right? We all have our outlets of trying to redirect our attention to something other than what we don't want to deal with. So when people show up and they're like, you nailed it when you say they overschedule. What would be something that you would tell them, or what would be something that you would, if somebody's not recognizing, let me ask it this way. If somebody's not recognizing that they are an overschedule because they're in the world of avoidance, how do you bring that to light for them?
Yeah, I mean, you can just use a barometer. Look at your calendar and what thing is giving you peace and life and moving you closer to where you want to go and who you want to become, and what is stealing your joy, what is creating chaos, what is causing stress and animosity and just getting you to clench your teeth and your fists. Like, let's get that off the calendar. Maybe it served you at one point, or maybe the habitual you just does this, but you get to choose. So looking at your calendar, what is it that's taking away and what is adding joy to? And so how can you eliminate, delegate, procrastinate on that thing until you can get it out, and then make space for more beautiful things? Because everything you have in your life is a result of your belief, your thinking, your habit, your identity, your character. So you have to change some of that, and it starts with your belief.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that, because you're so right. There's so many facets that feed into where we are and who we are, right? So if you first recognize, like, okay, I don't want to be this person anymore. Who I want to be for the world is this person. Then it gives you a roadmap. And the universe gives you signs. It gives you clues as to, when you do this behavior, this is the outcome. So a lot of people, what I'm also hearing is awareness. Be present to what's showing up for you. Be present to the physical manifestations. Be present to your thoughts. Be present to the feelings you get when you're doing certain things. And that is always a good guide for you to recognize, are you on track or are you not?
It is. And I love what you say about being present, because if you're spending all your time thinking about the past injustices, you're living in regret. If you're spending all your time just, thinking about the future, you're living in total fear, because most of the, these things haven't happened yet, but you create this story of such a fearful, victim, whatever it might be, place that you're creating. But if you can just get present and breathe, now you have an opportunity to really get to know yourself, to become your authentic self, and not who the world says you are, but who you really are. And not a lot of people do that. I mean, if you could even think of someone who you think really lives an authentic life. I know a bunch because I've got, amazing friends who really have gotten to high levels of self-actualization, but most people are living in this conformed place that the world has told them they need to be. And
Yeah.
it's mediocrity. It's really a low level of existing.
And the thing too that I want to add to that, is sometimes people don't even realize that that's what they are, where they're at, right? They just go through life and don't give it much thought. So for those of you listening, this is a really important conversation. One of the things that I often tell my students, right? I teach at a coaching school on how to become a coach. What do you need to do? And the first thing that I tell them is like, you need to get into personal development. You need to clean up the areas of life that you may not have been really great at, that things aren't working for you, and you need to go ahead and take a real look as to who you are and what you're up to. And then from there, it gives you a powerful place to move forward. But if you are trying to create something new without being in integrity of everything that's happened in the past, it's always going to catch up. There's always going to be some mess to clean up, and you're not going to be able to really be at peace with where you are and what you have going on. So I love this. And for those of you listening, it's not doom and gloom. This is really great news, that things that are not working out for you the way that you want them to, you can change it. You can change it. And I love this. I love this. And the grief, the fear, the rejection that comes around divorce, that also comes around cancer, because to me, I find that they are connected. And that's why I was so excited to have this conversation. A lot of times you hear people that are going through cancer, their spouse are unfaithful, or, they give up because it's really hard. And a lot of people try to hold on to it because it's that one last thing of your past life. So what would you say to somebody that is going through a really difficult time right now, that they're trying to hold on to their marriage for dear life?
Yeah.
Um,
I would
because
say work on yourself. And I've done this with people. Some people will come to me at the stage where they are still married, but the woman will be like, I can't stand to be in the room with him. I hate his tattoos. I hate and I'll go, let's work on you. Okay. Because if
yeah,
we can work on you, then you're going to change. And when you change, then things around you start to change. And sometimes you just need to do things differently, because everything is learned.
yeah,
Gossip is learned, poverty is learned, fear is learned. And just like you learn those things, you can learn, connection and acceptance and not being judgmental. And so nurture yourself, and then the things around you will start to change because you're doing things differently. They will too. And of course, it helps if the other person has a desire to want to stay married. But either way, wherever you go, whatever direction your marriage heads, there you are. And it's best that you be the best, healthiest version of
yeah,
yourself, no matter what happens, because we only all get today. None of us are promised tomorrow. So you need to be your best today. And then whatever's inside you is what comes out. So if
yeah.
inside you is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, self-control, that's what comes out of you. But if in you is, bitterness and stress and anger, when things get hard and you get squeezed, that's what comes out.
Yeah.
So no matter what, that's why, I train on self-love, gratitude. It's kind of a flippant thing. Oh yeah, gratitude. Gratitude is a superpower. It changed everything for me. So if you had to start somewhere, you could even just start with gratitude.
Yeah, I love that. And I like to call it celebrating the small victories.
Yeah.
Right? Pay attention to the small wins in life. It doesn't always need to be a huge thing. Sometimes getting out of bed is the win. Taking the shower is a win. Getting on the phone with a friend, making that time is a win. So I love that. Now, Kelli, how can people find you?
Yeah, so my website is Kelli with an I, Calabrese, Calabrese.com. If they want to go there, there's a free copy of my latest best-selling book, which is called Success Habits of Superachievers. And what I recommend is get the copy, download it, or you can get the hard copy and read one chapter a day, because there's over 80 stories in there of ordinary people just like you and I that something unreasonably difficult happened to, but they chose to overcome, and not only overcome, but to do something great with it. And it's designed to give people hope, especially at a time where they're feeling hopeless. So it's super encouraging. So they can get that there. Intentionallyfabulous.com is where they can find out about the divorce coaching. If they go to Facebook, if they're any woman going through separation, divorce, post-divorce, any relationship issues they have not yet, worked through, go join that page. It's private. We talk about the hard things. We laugh. We encourage each other. So that's Intentionally Fabulous on Facebook.
I love it. Thank you so much for what you're doing for the community. And thank you for
Thank you,
being here.
Lori. Thank
Thanks so
you.
much.